One of my favourite messages that we see in the Dicebreaker comment section is when you tell us that we've inspired you to play your first ever tabletop RPG. It's genuinely heartwarming that we can help more of you all get into this fantastic hobby, and I want to give a special shout out to all of you brave enough to act as the games master for your first ever game. Being the GM or DM or MC or whatever the two-letter acronym that your rulebook has thrown at you is can be incredibly daunting, and that is precisely why I'm here as your RPG dad to put together a list of some very easy tips to upgrade your GMing experience for both your players and you. Because you deserve to have a good time as well, gosh darn it. So hit the like button, make sure you subscribed, and let's kick things off with the first tip on the list. Number 1, you don't have to know every rule. Okay, this one is for all of you out there learning a brand new system. Whether you're playing your first ever RPG and pretty much everything is new to you, or you're an experienced GM trying out a new system, at some point you are going to have to learn the rules of a game. And let's not bury the lead here, learning rules can be confusing and a pain in the arse. Listen, I've got ADHD, I can't be sifting through a dry ass tome for hours on end. Cut yourself some slack, it's not just you being bad at reading. You might get lucky with a rules-light system, but some of the most popular games out there require you to understand a lot of complex systems and dice rolling mechanics and probabilities and all sorts of nonsense. This can be especially tricky if you're still wrapping your head around role-playing in general as a new player. I mean, case in point, most of you will be watching this because you're looking for advice on how to play Dungeons and Dragons, and despite what they are desperate for you to believe, D&D is not actually a good game for beginners. It's pretty dense, and there's a hell of a lot of burden of information when you're getting started. You shouldn't feel bad about having to sit down to GM and not having a full grasp on every rule in the book. Honestly, there's games I've been playing for years that I still draw blanks on. If you're confused about how something works in play, don't panic. You can improvise on what happens in the moment and check on the rule later. You can pause the game briefly to give your players a break whilst you read the rulebook. Whatever that you need, just do it. No one is going to be upset that you don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of how the game works on day one. And if they are, they might suck, actually. Maybe don't play with them. Here's a sub-tip for free as well. Your players can read the damn rulebook as well. RPGs aren't a 30-minute board game that you play once and move on from. You can spend your entire lives playing some campaigns. The more of your group that read and understand the rules, the easier it's going to be to have a good time and crack on with the roleplay. Number 2, keep a bird's eye view of the game. One of the biggest mistakes a lot of new GMs make is spending an entire week obsessively planning out a whole city's worth of NPCs and encounters and lore and maps and oh god, the paper, there is so much paper everywhere. Take a breath. There's something you need to understand about role-playing. Nothing ever goes to plan, so much so that 1 in a million time where everything does go exactly as you expected it, you'll be so taken aback you'll forget what your plan even was. You'll notice that more and more RPG books nowadays are filled with endless randomization tables. Character names, random encounters, loot, enemies, towns, weather, everything is available to you at the roll of a die. And the reason isn't just for preparation. These things are designed to be used on the fly, in the moment, during the game. Because the fact of the matter is your players will be deciding what actually happens in each session. The job of a GM isn't to control the story, but to guide it and react to it. You facilitate the adventure that your players are having. And when you overplan your sessions, you build these dependencies into the narrative that your players need to interact with to make it work. They didn't talk to the one guy with the magic key who lets them get past the impenetrable gate because that guy simply was not interesting to them. Yeah, this can lead to a lot of GM frustration, like, why aren't you talking to this dude? I spent a whole hour practicing his voice lines and writing his complicated backstory. Don't worry, I'm gonna let you in on a secret. Until it physically happens in roleplay, nothing is canon. If your super serious NPC who guards the secret to the plot is ignored after a single story, but some random shopkeeper is getting whole hours of screen time, why can't that shopkeeper be an important character in the story? The players clearly love her, so let her be a part of the table. Grab the bits that got forgotten from somewhere else and work them into what's currently happening. Did your players go through the wrong door yet again? No, they didn't. Until you open that door, its contents don't exist. Avoid the frustration on both ends and cut some corners. Or even better, simply don't write those corners until you need to. By keeping a really zoomed out bird's eye view of the story that you're trying to tell, you can fill in the details as and when you need them. Oh, the players really love this charming gnomish bookshop owner. Well, I need someone to work as a good out-of-nowhere betrayal figure, so let's start thinking about its reasons. Having a plan is great, and knowing the kind of narrative that you and your players are all trying to tell from the offset is a genuine godsend. But the more rigid that narrative becomes, the less fun you're likely to have telling it. This hobby is all about being imaginative and rolling with the punches, so have fun with it. Tell stories even you didn't expect to happen. Why do you think we roll dice every time that we try something? Number 3, things aren't written in stone. So this is sort of a continuation of the last point, but this isn't about planning, instead it's about letting go and being comfortable with that. A really bad habit that it's easy to get into when trying to bend the story around your players' actions is that as GMs we can sometimes write ourselves into a corner. There's a lot of plates that you have to keep spinning to keep interesting stories ticking on the fly, and sometimes even you're not sure where to go with things. There have been multiple times where a player of mine has asked about a certain NPC or plot hook, to which my only response is, I'm sorry, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. When did this happen? But here is genuinely one of my favourite things I've learned, and I'm not sure why it's not talked about more. Just retcon things. If something that's been established before no longer makes sense, or if your players aren't comfortable with where something is going, you can just pretend it didn't happen. There's this weird phenomenon that we all tend to have with RPGs where anything in the future is seen as limitless and unrestrained. Anything could happen. We will not be tethered to the planes of reality. The story is ours and ours alone. But as soon as something does happen, it becomes this unshakable and immovable constant. We must not touch the past. But the thing is, that doesn't have to be true. It's important to not mess too much with the past, or else your actions in the present might as well be worthless. But if some side character you all hate is too important to let go of, if your character did something last session that makes absolutely no sense in the story, if you just made a mistake, get rid of it. Forget it ever happened. Change it forever, because why not? Actions should have consequences, sure, but in no other medium are you expected to tell a perfect story without a single edit. Allow yourself the privilege of tidying up. Number 4, your players can create the world with you. Okay, this one is nice and simple, and it doesn't take too much explaining. You, as the GM of the game, do not have to be completely in charge of everything that happens in the world. RPGs are, for the most part, designed to be played as a group. And sometimes the rest of that group should be given the reins from time to time. And one of your strongest tools in the RPG toolbox is literally just asking your players questions. What do you find? How do they respond? What does it feel like? They can be little flourishes of player control or massive plot-defining moments handed over with love and trust to the player who it means the most to. This isn't unprecedented, by the way. You'll often see things like this in modern RPGs. In Blades in the Dark, your players create the quests and some of the NPCs. They invent the magical items, choose their adversaries, and define the stakes at hand. It's a pretty common thing for D&D Dungeon Masters to ask the player to describe what happens when they critically hit an enemy, giving them a cool flourish after a big chunk of damage. But you don't have to cordon off little areas where the players are allowed to take control. Give them the power whenever it seems interesting or appropriate. You'll be surprised by how much it can elevate the story that you're all telling together, and it's a great way of getting your players more invested, as they'll feel more agency over the direction of the game. Number 5, the players aren't your adversaries. So this is something that you always assume everyone knows, but it deserves repeating, I think. Role-playing isn't a competitive experience. Stories only build themselves when you work together, and that includes the GM. If you're building your experiences in an effort to beat the players, you're more likely to just frustrate or annoy them. If players are asking genuine questions that are going to help them have a good time, and you're being secretive with them to stop them getting the upper hand, or if you're unflinching in your sticking to the rules to the detriment of your group, you're not going to be telling a good story. There are RPGs that are built like that, absolutely. Those can be fun to play, and some players want a hard-as-nails challenge. But for the most part though, players are playing RPGs so that they can tell cool or interesting stories with their friends. If you're going to go out of your way to disrupt that in an effort to win, that kind of sucks in my opinion. Number 6, you don't always have to tell a complex story. It can be fantastic to shock and excite your players with twisting and weaving narratives, to have grand scale and epic implications for every adventure. But maybe not every adventure, especially when you're just starting out. It can be intimidating to tell a really mind-blowing tale that your players will be in awe of. But not every story is mind-blowing. Not every episode of your favorite TV show had groundbreaking moments and genre-defining plot devices in it. Sometimes they're just fun romps or quiet moments with friends. Sometimes they're straightforward narratives without too many twists. Sometimes the thing that you expect to happen happens and it's fun anyway. The same can be true of your adventures. Sometimes it's just a cave full of goblins. Sometimes the woman who definitely murdered her husband actually did. Try not to pressure yourself into being an Emmy-winning TV writer when you're just having a good time with your friends over some dice and character sheets. It'll only make the times that you do really shake things up even sweeter. It's worth noting that your players will sometimes be new to this as well. Lead them in gently with a tale that they can grasp nice and easily, and it will give them some room to get used to role-playing or the system that you've decided to play. Once everyone is comfortable, maybe start to subvert their expectations here and there, gradually build to those ambitious narratives. And remember, you can't subvert expectations if those expectations aren't there to begin with. Weird is only weird in comparison to normality. Let your players experience normality and then it will hit much harder when something out of the ordinary starts to happen. Number 7, the rules are a guide. You can do what you want. For those of you who are fully into the homebrewing and hacking side of RPGs, this is likely already a code you live your life by. But if you're new to this weird and wonderful world of role-playing, then there's an important lesson for you to learn. The rulebook is a fantastic resource for facilitating your role-playing sessions. It's full of cool systems and amazing lore, and if it's well written anyway, it will gently guide you through learning the game and getting comfortable with its mechanics and world. Thing is though, it's just a guide, and a fallible one at that. The designers of your favorite RPGs aren't equipped to deal with every weird foible that might come up in your play session. Sometimes play will be limited if you stick rigorously to the rules. And part of being a good GM is knowing when to bend or break those rules in service of the story. Did an absolutely epic moment just get ruined by a whiffed roll? It's up to you whether you accept the results of that roll or ignore it and carry on with what everyone planned or wanted. Is the monster a little too strong or weak for your current party to tussle with? Why not tweak their stats? Is a rule in the book making someone uncomfortable during play? Why not ignore it? If there's a game that you love that just has that one aspect that you absolutely hate, then just get rid of it. The incredible power of tabletop role-playing is that you are truly limitless in the things that you can do. If there's something that you're trying to work with that doesn't fit inside the limits of the game's rules, then that shouldn't necessarily stop you. The rules are a guide, but you and your players are ultimately in charge. The high level of skill that GMs need then is then knowing when to fluff those rules and when to let the game shine through. It can be tempting to abuse your power as GM, but it's sometimes best saved for the times when you really need it. The game you're playing might be limited in its scope, but it's also the game that you all decided to sit down and play, and sometimes you have to trust the designer has made the right design decisions and will still guide you to something cool if you use the rules that they've laid out. If you completely ignore the rules, then you'll end up playing the same game every time without realizing. It's about balance at the end of the day, and when you find the sweet spot, you'll be a far more accomplished and confident GM. Number 8, give the players what they want as much as you can. Sometimes it's not just about letting the players have agency and letting them make decisions in the world that you're building. Sometimes you need to listen to what they're aiming for and help them reach that point on their own. If you find yourself getting annoyed at your players for always going off and doing something different, you might not be telling the kind of stories that they're interested in. There's a few ways to tackle this, but the absolute best one is to just pay attention and listen to what they're seeking out. If your player spent ages writing in their backstory about a long-lost sibling, they're likely to get a little miffed if it never gets brought up. It's easy to assume that the GM is the only one who gets derailed by the player's actions, but actually it's far more commonplace for the players to feel like they're being dragged away from their favourite moments to check back in on the plot that they were avoiding. By observing the things that they gravitate towards, you can just fill your stories with more things like that. They'll think you're a genius when in actuality you're just being a good listener, and there's no better skill when it comes to being a good GM. Struggling to work out what it is that your players are looking for? Just ask them. Heart the City Beneath has players select from a list of goals for their player to try and reach at the start of their sessions. By looking at those goals, you can easily see what they want to achieve around the table today. If your game doesn't have something similar, then just talk to them about where they'd like to take their character, the sort of adventures that they like going on, or something that they wish they'd been able to do in previous games. You can have these discussions in private if you're worried about spoilers, or you can sit around the table with your group to hash it out before each game. We're all working together when we play RPGs, so be a good team player and listen out to what your teammates are asking for. Number 9, you don't have to be a voice actor to portray compelling characters. So we're getting close to the end of the list now, so here's a little reassurance for those of you who get nervous about character acting. As a GM, you have a lot of weight on your shoulders when it comes to performance. You're playing literally everyone else in the world, and with that comes a demand for a lot of versatility. The most common fear I hear from beginner GMs, and sometimes those who have been playing for years and years, is that they can't do accents, and most people can't. Like, I can do a few, and I tend to lean on them far too much, hence why there's so many West Country peasants in other worlds unique. But the thing is, it's not the accents of your characters that makes them unique from each other. Mannerisms, quirks, turns of phrase, mistakes, jokes, these are the things that people remember about your characters, and they're the things that you should be introducing to create interesting and diverse NPCs. It's all well and good having a Russian guy, a Scottish guy, and a French woman in your sci-fi town. They're nice and easy to tell apart for sure, but what happens when you've got about 100 different characters and those are the only 3 accents you can do? Defining a character just by the way that they say things is always one-dimensional, and after a while your characters will just blend into one another even if they all sound different. By working in a strange way that people talk about things, you can add intrigue and hints to who they are as a person. Maybe they don't ever refer to another NPC by their name, but they just give them a very pronounced them. Maybe they spit after every sentence. Maybe they have a very slow and cautious inflection, or a rapid and manic one. You can make characters so much more interesting by thinking about what characteristics have them stand out, rather than just worrying about what they sound like. And remember, you're as much a narrator as you are an actor. You don't have to perform everything that you say. Your bounty hunter can have a thick European accent, but without you actually doing it yourself. Just say they do. In general, mimicking other people's accents, especially outside your own country or continent, can be a bit inconsiderate. I certainly wouldn't attempt an African or Asian accent for any of my characters, but that doesn't mean I should never have characters from those parts of the world exist in my story. Number 10, safety and having a good time is more important than anything else. And finally, the most important tip of all, the safety of your group will always trump any cool idea or fun mechanic you want to use in your setting or story. You can never truly know what other people around the table are feeling or have experienced in their lives, and there are some topics or tones that your players just don't want to experience again. It could be as obvious as something like violence or bigotry, or even more personal, like certain players not wanting to delve into things like motherhood or alcohol or even just loud noises, for example. There's no topic that can't be removed from your story when necessary. Nothing is too integral to warrant putting someone else in an uncomfortable situation. There are now a huge range of safety tools to help groups of players navigate these situations with tact and respect for the other people in their group, and most games will even suggest ones that work well with their systems. You'll be far more comfortable about knowing where you and your players' hard lines sit, as will your players be more confident in your ability to handle things with the respect they deserve. These things change as well. Something that might not have been an issue for your session last time could now be hugely traumatic for one of the players to experience and play, and your guidelines around these topics will need to be clearly translated and fluid. If you think this is all new age crap and I'm a snowflake or whatever, then 1, why are you watching this channel? But also 2, take some time to sit down and understand how hurtful it can be to people who are supposed to be your friends to relive things linked to horrible memories in their life. No one is trying to censor you, they're just asking you to give them the same decency and respect that you would expect in return from them. You might think that your dark adventure about bad people is really cool, and they might as well, but if you don't pay attention and reverence to the things that your players need from you when discussing those difficult topics, then they're just not going to want to play with you anymore, and you'll end up the one worse off. Look, GMing can be a tricky business, but if you're giving it your best shot, and you're being respectful to your other players, well then there's nothing that you need to be worried about. Just like any other skill in the world, it takes time to get used to. Give yourself time and practice and take things easy, and I promise you'll get better as time goes on. In the meantime, why not give us a sub and watch some more videos here on Dicebreaker's YouTube channel. We've got plenty of stuff on RPGs for you to watch, including some of the videos popping up on screen right now. You can hit the bell icon to get notified whenever we put a new one live as well, and be sure to check out Dicebreaker.com for even more tabletop content from our lovely writers. And we'll see you on the next vid. But until then, stay safe and have a lovely day.